Happy President's Day. It's Monday. I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to the Sal Greco Show. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button, the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching us on Rumble, hit the Rumble button, hit the like button, hit the follow button. If you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like, share, and subscribe. There's a whirlwind of news all over the place, whether it be in foreign policies, domestic policies, presidential issues. We have local and state issues across the board all over the country. But today I was going to focus on a particular race, which is a city council race in Staten Island. And someone I know is running for this seat. So without any further ado, we're going to be talking to this person, this candidate, who I also know very well. And that's coming right up on the Sal Greco Show. All right, so here to join us on the Sal Greco Show, my good friend and a special guest here. It's President's Day, and he is running for a seat at City Council in New York City, and that's Frank Morano, my good buddy and paisan, and the true mayor of Staten Island. Frank, welcome to the Sal Greco Show.
Sal, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. In addition to being your friend, I'm a great admirer of not only what you've been able to do with this show, but what you've done your whole career in law enforcement, in terms of being an advocate, in terms of being a citizen activist. As far as I'm concerned, even though you're not technically a New Yorker anymore, you're really the model for what every New Yorker should be doing. You put your money where your mouth is, and you are out there at the forefront of every issue, whether or not that's the PC issue of the day or not. And I always give you a lot of credit for that publicly, and I'm glad to be here on your show.
Thank you, Frank. It's a, I guess some critics of mine say it's a little watch show, just like they used to say you had a little watch show. Meanwhile, you were really either one or two in the ratings, on midnights.
Little watched, heavily watched. I think if one person's watching and they're interested in what you have to say, then it makes it worthwhile doing, right? I mean, at least you entertained or informed one person that wouldn't have been informed otherwise, right? So whatever the audience size is, I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, thank you, Frank. Thanks for coming, to the show, because I've always been a close friend of yours and an admirer of yours also.
Thank you.
Your body of work speaks for itself in everything you've done. But now you are running for city council.
Right.
That is coming up. Obviously, Joe Borelli, no matter whatever people feel about him, he stepped down. So that's an empty seat. So now you'll be running for that seat coming up. So I guess people, if they don't know who you are, give everyone a brief synopsis of yourself and how this came about and, how this is going to work. Because you yourself, you know a lot more about New York City politics than anyone else I know. And that includes Curtis Lewa. So I would like you to explain this all for the audience so they understand.
Sure. So in terms of the election itself, as you mentioned, this is Joe Borelli, city council seat. Joe's been very visible, not just in New York, but nationally. He's a fixture on Fox News and on Newsmax. He was the minority leader of the New York City Council and really kind of was the voice for not just center-right New Yorkers, but really every New Yorker that's kind of fed up with the ultra woke nonsense, and really every New Yorker, the so-called silent majority, the people that pay all the bills and go to work every day and sit in an hour and a half of traffic every day. Joe was really the voice of those folks. So Joe was term limited. He left a couple of months early to pursue some opportunities in the private sector. So now there's a nonpartisan special election. That's what I'm running in. That election is going to be in April 29th. Now, in terms of my career in my life, Reader's Digest version is professionally. Most of my career, just about all my career, has been in broadcasting. A little bit of television, but a whole lot of radio. Been in radio for really the last 22 years professionally, and on an unpaid basis even before that. For the last 4 years, I've been hosting The Other Side of Midnight, which, in addition to airing on 77 WABC in the New York area, airs on a whole lot of great radio stations around the country. And but I'm active in the community. Besides that, I've been on the community board for a long time. I've testified at every charter revision commission since 2002 with my ideas for improving city government. Most of my ideas have been ignored, but a couple they picked, and we were able to stop a couple of bad ideas from making their way into the city charter. So I really, you asked about my thought process in deciding to run for this seat. You're never supposed to say this, and most elected officials that I know, or most people that run for elective office, they're absolutely certain when the opportunity presents itself that it's something that they want to do. In my case, I don't mind telling you that it was a very difficult decision, maybe one of the most difficult decisions I've ever had to make, because I have such a promising radio career. We're on about 30 markets around the country, maybe more. A lot of great radio stations too, like WGN, KMOX, KDAWN, WCCO, really powerful signals and heritage stations, and it's growing. It's the fastest growing overnight show in the country, as you mentioned. We were number one in the ratings in New York, and my contract was up next year. I was probably in a position to get a big raise, and I think we would have just kept adding more and more stations. And really, it's not exactly like I was doing brain surgery or digging ditches, right? It's a lot of fun, this job. So why then do I step aside from this? Well, while I'm running, I'm actually doing both. I'm still doing the radio show, albeit for a lot less money. And I'm still running full time, which is basically 2 full-time jobs in one. So really it all comes down to people like you, Sal, because you, along with my siblings, along with my cousins, along with every single person that I grew up with on the South Shore of Staten Island, all of you guys have one thing in common, which is that you moved off of Staten Island. And my son, who you've met, he's got his Sal Greco Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt at 3 years old. I would love for Staten Island to be a great place for him to grow up, but I'd love when he's an adult for him not to move to Jersey or Pennsylvania or Florida or North Carolina or somewhere else. So I'd like to be able to say to him that when he's at his own crossroads of what he wants to do as an adult, I'd like to be able to say to him, Carmine, I did everything I could to make this community a community that you want to stay in. So for me, the whole campaign is about stopping the Staten Island exodus. The whole campaign is about keeping Staten Islanders Staten Islanders. The whole campaign is about not continuing to fuel the economic boom that states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina have enjoyed, with all the Staten Islanders moving there, and a lot of them with their New York City pension checks. So how do we do that, right? So I want to leave it all out on the field. I am not naive enough to think that in a body of 51, with about 40 of whom are really a bit crazy, to be honest, that I can wave a magic wand and change everything. But I'll tell you this. We're going to have a lot of victories. I'm prepared to work with people on every side of the aisle to move the ball forward and move the needle forward just that much and that much and that much. And on the battles we lose, you are going to have someone that is the most vociferous advocate for outer borough, middle class, and working class New Yorkers. And these are the folks that don't have a voice. There's plenty of people that want to be the Black Lives Matter spokesperson. There's plenty of people that want to be the spokesperson for this ethnic group or this special interest group. I want to be the spokesperson for regular people, and especially in the outer boroughs. And that's kind of why I'm running and why I decided to do this.
You make some great points. You're speaking for a lot of people that are still, they live in Staten Island. I hear from them all the time, like and they have a lot of complaints. Whether it's a rising crime rate now in Staten Island. And, city council person, you will have a little bit of a say here to try to sway things. Of course, the mayor, who is mired in controversy that I'm sure we're going to get to him in a little bit. Oh, yeah. I'm sure he has a huge say in what's going on there, especially with the New York City Police Department and everything there. But there's one issue that I'm sure you heard about, and I know everyone who's watching is going to want to ask you this. A lot of New York City and workers, municipal employees, that's firefighters, sanitation workers, police officers, people that worked in for the municipality of New York City. they were terminated by Eric Adams as the mayor because they didn't capitulate to that at the time, that forced mandate that was going on. They were terminated, and then they respectfully sued New York City as a whole and the mayor. So they sued to try to get their job back. They went to court. The judge sided with them and said that they would have to go get their job back. They had the right to get all their benefits, back pay, you name it. Eric Adams, Corporation Counsel, Eric Adams, who states that he follows the law and listens to the Corporation Counsel, not the other way around. So he's in charge, but the lawyer sometimes tells him what to do. Other times now he's telling them what to do. It's all a farce. He's in charge. So he says the Corporation Counsel, they are fighting these appeals over and over again. Every time they go to court and another judge states they have to be put back to work. So for those people that want to know, are you in support of them, or what could you do to help them? Are you or are you not in support of these people and their right to get their jobs back from a forced mandate that they were told they had the right to go back to work?
I would not only be 100% in support of them getting their jobs back, but I would be in support of getting them back pay for all the time that they've missed. I mean, it's absolutely criminal. Nobody should be forced to take any sort of medical procedure that they don't want to take, especially something that's as novel as the COVID vaccine was. Particularly when we talk about vaccines, most of the people that got COVID towards the back end of when COVID was really surging were people that had been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So what are we really saying? We're going to force someone to, I thought it was bad enough that they wouldn't let people go to restaurants inside if they weren't vaccinated, but we're saying that we're going to fire people, not give them their job back, that have done nothing wrong because they don't want to take a vaccine that doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. So no, in terms of what I can do, I'd be happy as a council member to issue a friend of the court brief, an amicus brief, in any future litigation on that. Now, and in the ensuing months, I'd be happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with any affected workers in terms of doing a press conference on this. Once I'm in the council, I'd be happy to sign on to or introduce legislation that says exactly that. And I'll use the bully pulpit of the office, and even before we get there, the campaign, to advocate for that. I think it's insane. I think it's a grave injustice. And that's one of those things where people look back through the prism of history. That's going to be one of those things where people say, okay, how did they really do this to hardworking people that never did anything wrong? So I am 100% in support of any fired worker that got fired because they didn't want to take the COVID vaccine or any other medical procedure. I'm totally pro-choice in terms of what people should be able to do with their own body. And the offensive aspect of this to me as a taxpayer is that the Corporation Counsel and Mayor Adams have been fighting this with our own tax dollars. I, as a taxpayer, don't want my tax dollars used to engage in legal fights to keep city workers from getting their job back. It's preposterous.
Not to mention that he uses Corporation Counsel to defend him and his cronies in sexual assault and harassment lawsuits, whether they're 30 years old or not. And that goes against GML 50K2, which is in the city charter. And somehow the only person even referenced this once was Lincoln Wrestler, who looks like he belongs on the Golden Girls. And Lincoln Wrestler, when you hear him at these hearings, he has this big bark, no bite. Kind of reminds me of a left-wing version of Trey Gowdy, who was once a congressman, did the exact same thing.
But at the very least, he's been willing to do some oversight on issues related to what the mayor's doing and the Corporation Counsel paying for these unique legal defenses. So that's the thing is Lincoln Wrestler's a guy that I probably don't see the world the same way as, but I would work with him in terms of holding the mayor accountable, make sure he can't use our tax dollars to pay for his sexual assault defense. So that's the kind of thing that I referenced earlier about, unlikely alliances. And he's somebody, if any member of the council, by the way, ultra right wing, ultra left wing. If there's somebody that I disagree with 99 out of 100 times, then I want to work with them on the one issue that we're on the same page as.
Yeah, this seems to be an issue that many New York City citizens and taxpayers are concerned of, is how, Eric Adams just freely spends their money. And I mean, now he is trying to sue the federal government for the FEMA money that, rightfully so, President Trump's administration is saying you're like trying to steal from us, because he has the right to cut funds from cities or states in whatever he deems fit, because that's the federal government giving you grants. Eric Adams believes that, no, he needs this money because, as you know, he was involved in, Kickback Central with the migrant shelters. So now he wants the $80 million back. So in this instance, Eric Adams has the time to tell Corporation Counsel, I want them to look into this and you're going to sue the federal government. But in other instances, like this instance with the people that are, still terminated, homeless, some of them don't even have a place to live. They don't have a job. They can't get a job. No, the lawyer advises him what to do. In the other retrospect, he's advising the lawyer. So that's the kind of guy you get. He's always on both sides of each issue. So that's what I'm saying, because Staten Islanders have to know that for sure Frank Morano's got their best interest, no matter what issue it is. And you are willing to work even with someone like Lincoln Ressler, who I don't even agree with him, but he does have a point when it came to this issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And also, you have anything to say about the crime that's going on there? Because obviously, the 1, 2, 3, I've seen the crime rates go up. And, we lived in Staten Island for decades. I mean, you're from Staten Island. Yep. And now it's a little bit of a problem in the South Shore. And we don't hear anything from Eric Adams and his New York City Police Department other than the perception management. So they'll say, crime is down, jobs are up, the city's not surviving, it's thriving. And you walk outside and you go, Staten Island's crime is up 5, 10, 15%. He'll bring out those charts, those charts, those fancy charts.
Yep.
But it's all manipulation. So what are your thoughts on that?
So crime's a big problem, and it's not a perception problem. For starters, the mayor has talked a good game over the last year and a half or so. Gee, I wonder why. On the issue of sanctuary cities, where New York City actually has a policy of not cooperating with ICE detainer requests. But now he does joint appearances with Tom Homan, and that's great, and says a lot of the right things, and that's great. I'm glad he is. But last year, the mayor had a charter revision commission, which could have put changes on the ballot, which did put changes on the ballot to city government. The number one issue, and I was at almost every hearing, the number one issue that people testified about was doing away with New York City's sanctuary city status, specifically these de Blasio era laws that prohibit New York City law enforcement from cooperating with federal law enforcement. The mayor, who handpicked every member of this commission, he appointed every single one, he could have told them to put anything on the ballot, and they would have. They were his appointees. He chose not to put the sanctuary city question on the ballot. So he's very much a Johnny-come-lately on that aspect of law enforcement, which is of great concern not only to Staten Islanders, but New Yorkers in general. In terms of issues unique to the South Shore, there is a huge problem with, and they're sort of interrelated, auto theft, catalytic converter theft, and home invasions. We've seen about, don't quote me on this number because I'm getting the statistics from available sources, but we've seen in the last year, a little more than a year, about 34 home invasions on the South Shore of Staten Island. Most of them have had something to do with looking for car keys to steal a car and drive it to New Jersey. There's also a big problem with catalytic converter theft. Even if they don't steal the whole car, they come to Staten Island from Jersey, steal the catalytic converters, and then drive right back to Jersey. So I think we need a couple of things. I think we need rapid response for property crime, auto, and catalytic converter theft. There's got to be a dedicated property crime task force to tackle theft and burglaries. Maybe, and this is a little unorthodox, but maybe even something that's a cooperation between the NYPD and New Jersey law enforcement, whether it's the state troopers or whether it's local municipal police departments in New Jersey, because that's what happens. It's like a race to get to the Outerbridge crossing. As part of that, I would work with the 123 and with the DA's office to set up checkpoints, because once these folks start coming here, trying to steal cars or trying to steal catalytic converters and realize that, they are going to have to deal with a checkpoint when they get to the Outerbridge crossing or the Goethals Bridge, they're going to stop. They're going to go somewhere else. So I think, and look, ultimately, I think we need fewer speed cameras and more cops. You want to do something about speeding? I am all for it. My stepmother was almost died when she got hit by a reckless driver 5 years ago. So I take that kind of thing very seriously. But speed cameras don't stop people from speeding. Well, they may stop people from speeding. But if you really want to stop people from speeding, the first thing you have to do is put up speed bumps, because right now, the situation is they don't allow you to put up a speed bump within 1,000 feet of a speed camera. Now, think about that. They supposedly want to stop people from speeding, but won't allow a speed bump. Why? Because it's not about speeding. It's about revenue. The other thing is, they lowered the speed limit. People changed their behavior. They did see the speed cameras and did, in some instances, lower the speed they were driving at. So they lowered the speed limit, which tells you it has nothing to do with speeding or pedestrian safety. It's all about revenue. I think when it comes to policing, we need more cops. I think that'll be a disincentive to reckless driving. I think it allows police to use their discretion. And we need fewer speed cameras, which, as far as I'm concerned, is just another tax on middle-class Staten Islanders.
Yeah, the speeding aspect, and I worked in the NYPD, so I know that there's nothing better than the human aspect of a police officer enforcing things, good or bad. I think it beats these traffic. They have the lights up there now. That's not what and it's a lot of there's rumors of kickbacks to certain politicians with that kind of stuff on top of it, and we don't know exactly who. We have an idea, we hear about things, but that's one of the rumors that's been going on for quite a while. But while we're on the same subject, as it is public safety, what about the fentanyl and the drugs that's constantly being spoken about in all of Staten Island? Because you do have the community board hearings, they have the precincts come by, but how can city council or the mayor or anyone, how can they tackle that issue? Because there's still a drug problem in the South Shore, in particular, Staten Island.
Yeah, it has gotten a lot better because of a few different things, namely the broader use of Narcan by both individuals who have family members that are addicts and by the police department. But I think there's a few things that need to be done, right? I think in general, you need an what I'll call, it doesn't have to be called this, but what I'll call an anti-drug overdose strike team, which is a specialized team focused on preventing overdoses, including rapid naloxone deployment, and then target drug dealers with severe penalties, right? So I don't think there's anything contradictory about supporting addicts in terms of services, in terms of support they may need, in terms of getting them help they may need, and at the same time, somebody that's selling them that fatal dose of fentanyl, taking them to the woodshed and locking them up and throwing away the key.
So the not so heavy-handed approach towards someone who's an addict and needs help, and go after the person that's caught that was intending to sell a large quantity of something, that person should have the book thrown on them versus throwing a book at virtually everyone. That's always kind of been the mistake, we'll say, of either the police department or a local DA, and that's how I believe these cases then
that's exactly my view. That's exactly my view.
Yeah, I see it the same way, but unfortunately here, even though we're, quote unquote Republicans, you and I, we're running into an issue. Now, you and I'll speak for, I know that you voted for President Trump multiple times.
3 times.
But as I have also, and I actually lost my job because of this. So, and we'll get to that. But because we're critical of certain boneheaded moves that his administration makes or he himself makes, how are now, people go turn around and they'll say, Frank Morano's a liberal or Sal Greco's a liberal because we're trying to be critical. So there's something that happened in the last few days,
Mm-hmm.
and I find it egregious and preposterous that it happened because I am, of course, a law enforcement person that,
Sure.
in the end, I believe you also believe in the law and that we follow rules, even if things look political or whatnot. You want to see things through. So the scenario here is, of course, Eric Adams, as the mayor of New York City, was indicted not too long ago because he was bribing or bribery and all a false, all these different things. Basically, what it is the campaign matching fund program, which Frank could explain a lot better than me. That's 8-1. He is alleged to have taken $10 million, all summed up in public matching funds, whether it be through Turkish airline upgrades, this low information rhetoric, this punchline they keep using, or for some political purposes. The bottom line is $10 million he took in public matching funds through Turkish straw donors because they were trying to influence Eric Adams and his run for mayor and while he was a Brooklyn Borough president. Now, the low information hook line here, and it's designed for perception management and low information people, is, he was being persecuted because he came out in against Joe Biden and his policies. Eric Adams ran as a mayor for sanctuary cities. He demonized the Trumps and President Trump, called him a white supremacist. You could go back and look. It's all over the place. People seem to forget, kind of like a WWE storyline. And then he goes on to say that he wants illegal immigrants to vote in local elections. Now, there was a court hearing this week on that. Eric Adams did not veto that bill and it became a law. And even though it's bouncing back and forth, he's for that because 800,000 stand to vote in the next local election if this isn't resolved. So that's one instance. But they keep screaming that his charges are political. Now, whether it be political or not, you saw that this week, Danielle Sassone, who was a Republican, a conservative.
Right.
She is not a liberal by any stretch of the imagination. She's worked in the Justice Department. She clerked for Antonin Scalia, Mr. Conservative, Mr. Supreme Court conservative for decades. All right. So she stated that she actually brought the facts in her memo because they wanted her to dismiss this case on political grounds. There are no merit. There's no merit for a dismissal. There's no grounds for a dismissal. So she stated that, in fact, the actual investigation started with Eric Adams in 2017. So it was the Trump Justice Department that would have politically persecuted Eric Adams, if that's what you're going to say. And that all the crimes that were committed go as far back as 2014, when he was the Brooklyn Borough president, and the same cast of characters he had around him. Also, I'd like to point out, as I've pointed out numerous times, a grand jury indicted him based off of witness testimony, and now the co-defendants / co-conspirators who pled guilty to now cooperating. They pled guilty to the same charges, or some of the charges, that Eric Adams was charged with. So they are stating in one of these co-defendants, Mohammed Bahi, he stated that when he went to go see Erdogan Erkan, which is the other co-defendant, which is a Turkish straw donor, he went over there, and one of the things he had asked Mohammed was, well, the mayor said, what do I do? And he said, well, the mayor, Eric, told them, don't worry about the FBI. They won't find the cash. That sounds to me more like a street thug operating like a mob boss than a mayor or a politician trying to say, do the right thing. So with this whole thing that the Justice Department now emailed Bove, the Deputy Attorney General, stating that we have to cancel this whole dismissal and we're going to forego it for now, but it could be brought back up. It sounds unethical, but it was done on the grounds of Eric Adams will help us with illegal immigration problem, which you just alluded to. The city laws enacted will not make, no matter what executive order Eric Adams puts out, the police department cannot help them. They cannot aid because it's in the books and they're a city agency, not a federal agency. So what are your thoughts on all of this? Because if I even say one word, you're going to have people that are, what can we say? I don't know if it's a cult following, whatever you want to call it. They're calling me and my friends, John McCarr and Eric Dim. We are now liberals because we are being critical of something that sounds unconstitutional.
Sal, you said quite a bit there, so I'm going to try and drill down on a few different aspects of what you said. First of all, this whole nomenclature of liberal, conservative, I have no idea what those labels mean anymore, because if you look at during the Bush administration, I would have absolutely proudly called myself a liberal, because liberals at the time stood up for, I think, in opposition to the wrong direction the country was going, standing up against things like warrantless wiretapping, standing up against never-ending wars, standing up against crony capitalism, things like that. These days, the Democrats, at least the ones we see on cable news and in the halls of Congress, they're only too happy to partner with the national security state to reauthorize warrantless wiretapping, to assume whatever the CIA or the FBI says about any investigation is gospel. And, forget about it. They can't send enough money to Ukraine to make sure that war never ends. So I don't know what those labels mean, liberal, conservative. I give you a lot of credit for doing what I've always tried to do, which is be critical, be laudatory every time someone you like, or someone you dislike for that matter, does something good, and be critical of them whenever they do something you don't like. I think only robots or automatons are always on the same side as something. Even Donald Trump changes his position on all sorts of issues. Look no further than the cryptocurrency issue. In his first administration, he was very against cryptocurrency. He said so publicly. Now he's Mr. Crypto. The issue of TikTok, wanted to ban it initially. Now he saved it. So if Trump can change his mind, why would anybody be critical of someone for being critical of not Trump as a person or a president, but of an individual decision that he's made? I think the easy thing to do is not think for yourself and say, oh, Trump said it good, Biden said it bad, right? I mean, I never voted for Biden, certainly, but whenever he did something that I thought was good, I always said so. They were few and far between, but once in a while there was an issue that I thought he was doing the right thing on, and I said so. Doesn't make me a Biden supporter or a Biden acolyte. Now, in terms of first Adams and the immigration issue, you have a couple of different issues here. One, you rightly point out that he had the opportunity to veto the bill for non-citizen voting, and he didn't do so. He allowed it to become law. I know he says, it would have become law. They would have overridden his veto. Well, good. Make them override the veto. That's why we have leaders. Two, people forget this now because over the course of the last year and a half, Adams has said a lot of the right things on the migrant crisis, but initially, when there were busloads of migrants coming to New York City, he and Frank Morano were welcoming them. And they were comparing these folks who were coming here expecting to be taken care of by the taxpayers of the city of New York and local charities. They were comparing them to folks that came here through Ellis Island, which was a preposterous comparison. Then let's talk about what's going on now. As you point out, the mayor's criminal indictment, the investigation began under the Trump administration. So to say that this was cooked up in retribution for him being outspoken, it's absurd. The rationale that the Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove uses to dismiss the charges is equally absurd, because he's not saying that the mayor didn't do anything wrong, which if that's what they were saying, I could almost deal with it. What he's saying is, well, the mayor's doing such important work, and we can't have this criminal case be a distraction from the important work that the mayor is doing. I guarantee you that every single federal criminal defendant thinks the work that they're doing in whatever field is pretty important, and that trial is a distraction from whatever work they're doing. I'm sure you could ask Bob Menendez if the work he was doing in the U.S. Senate was important, and he would say, yeah, that's pretty important. So what you have here is a ridiculous situation. You have a federal grand jury that indicted a sitting mayor for the first time in history. And essentially the Justice Department is saying that those charges don't count. I understand where the president and his Justice Department is coming from. I understand that he wants a partner in the mayor of the city of New York, and that if the mayor resigns or is removed from office, that whoever takes over, Jumaane Williams, in the short term, is going to be much worse. But to me, that's not an excuse for letting someone get away with crimes. If the mayor believes he was singled out for selective prosecution, or he's being persecuted, because of his political beliefs or whatever he's saying, he should make that case at trial, right? Let him go to trial, let him make the case, and let's let a jury and a judge decide whether that argument holds any merit. And then, after the whole jury process concludes, then if the president decides that, it's important to dismiss these charges, or he was railroaded, then at that point, maybe he can issue a pardon. Roger Stone had to go through a jury trial. Paul Manafort had to go through a jury trial. Why are we saying that this is the one guy that shouldn't have to go through a jury trial? It's preposterous as far as I'm concerned. Now, what we get now is a mayor who's going to be a marionette for the president and do whatever the president wants. I understand why Trump likes it. I understand why Adams likes it. He gets to stay out of prison. But is it the right thing for New Yorkers? I don't think so. I think people are going to hold the mayor accountable when he runs for re-election this year. And I don't think you can just disregard a grand jury indictment. It's got to count for something. Let the mayor make his case at trial.
Many second your thoughts, Frank. In fact, when we go back to the Roger Stone trial and Paul Manafort and General Michael Flynn and so on and so forth, President Trump at that time, I believe, also said he didn't know anything. Like he said the other day, I don't know that Emil Bove did what he did. He didn't know Rod Rosenstein and Jeff Sessions did what they did either, apparently, with Roger Stone. But he didn't stop those trials. So
right.
He's stopping this one. So in this retrospect here, he's being a hypocrite himself because, Roger's trial, I believe, was, egregiously political with no crimes there, nothing. And they put him through hell, where this guy is Frank, he's not only being looked at this way. There's tentacles to all other cases, whether it be that nightclub in the Bronx that he's involved in. He's involved with his former police commissioner, his former police chief. He's got all kinds of mischigas going on around him. Frank Carone, these are guys that are all ensnared because of Eric Adams. He is the middle central figure. Now, if you stop those investigations, Frank, what are you saying? There is no rule of law. That's how people are seeing this, especially men and women that wear that uniform and take pride in it, not people that want to curry favor with other people. I'm talking about real prosecutors, people that don't bring their politics into things. It looks really bad, no matter how you feel, which I try to take my feelings out of, is how you feel about President Trump as an individual, as a candidate, as a president. It's wrong. His Justice Department is wrong. That's how I see it.
I completely agree. I think I understand where they're coming from, but I think it's the wrong decision.
Yeah, I seen Al Sharpton's out there saying he should be pardoned if he's going to do this. When I start agreeing with some of the people that I've never agreed with, something's off. It's like the world we're on. My equilibrium is off now because I can't believe I'm agreeing with people like that. I mean, but he has a point. He's making a good point. But the thing now is, Frank, how does this affect New York City on a day-to-day level, that he's mired in all this stuff? This has been going on for years now. How does New York City function with everything going on?
Well, look, you don't need to just look at the mayor. You mentioned, several of his previous police commissioners. You mentioned several of his deputy mayors. There's total corruption throughout the administration. And I have, I know some people that work for Mayor Adams that I think are good public servants and are honest and have integrity. But by and large, in the history of New York City, you have to go back, even the Ed Koch City for Sale scandal, even if you go back to Gentleman Jimmy Walker, I don't know that we've ever seen a mayor and an administration that was so brazen in terms of thinking they could steal everything that wasn't nailed down. I mean, it seems to me, and again, I believe in the system of justice, and I really do believe in being innocent until you're proven guilty. But it looks to me that this is a group of people, a group of cronies that couldn't wait to get in and glom whatever they could get their hands on. So I think it's ridiculous. I think average New Yorkers, doesn't matter Democrat or Republican, have zero faith in the mayor. And the only people you hear defending the mayor are folks that say that the alternative is even worse. I mean, that's no way to run a city. No way to run a city. So I don't think things are going to bode well for him in his reelection. But at the moment, I think I don't want to be disrespectful, but I think people view the mayor as a total joke.
You know, I've heard far worse mentioned about him in a criminal, in criminal aspect because of the stuff he's done. Do you think he should be removed, or should they should keep him there as a lame duck virtually and as a puppet for? I mean, I thought there was a separation of power between the government, the state, and local, and apparently now it's the federal government is running the city from what it looks like now. That's what it looks like. It's not, it's a big perception management with Eric Adams, but here's the perception, and it's actually in reality, is President Trump's running the city. Because if he says jump, he's going to say how high. Is that what people voted for? I don't think so.
No, I certainly don't think so either. The question you ask is such a good one in terms of whether the mayor should be removed. I'm not really a big believer in removing people from terms that they were elected to by the public. But this is such an unprecedented situation where we're essentially disregarding a federal grand jury indictment. I don't know. I can see kind of both sides of it. I will say this. I think if the mayor cared about the maintenance of this city and the future of this city, I think he would probably resign, because being mayor is an incredibly tough job. This is one thing that Mayor Adams is absolutely right about. They used to say, and I think it's still true, that it was the second toughest job in America. There's no way you can give your full attention to being mayor and your full attention to running a citywide campaign for mayor while you're in the midst of all of these criminal investigations. Because remember, these cases were dismissed without prejudice, meaning they could bring them back anytime. So there's no way that while you're tiptoeing and walking a fine line, trying not to be re-indicted, there's no way that you can do the job of mayor adequately while you're concerned about not having this case come back, and while so many of your other cronies are under either state or federal criminal investigation or indictment. So, I'm not going to speak to whether he should be removed, but I don't think he can adequately do the job that he was elected to do right now. And I wish he would kind of put New Yorkers out of their misery and resign and allow a special election to take place.
Yeah, I think personally he's a distraction. He's a carnival act that's gotten old, all that swagger nonsense. Everything he's done, whether it's moving left and moving right, it's being investigated. Mm-hmm. It's corruption. So it just breeds that. And the people that are out there, and there's many of them, we got to keep them there because Jumaane Williams would take over. Well, unfortunately for New Yorkers, and they should actually read, city charter and all the rules, there's an electorate, and you didn't vote. Maybe if you would have voted for a public advocate or come to the election back when Eric Adams was running against Curtis Lewa, you would have said, either my vote, it does count, doesn't it? Because New York has 8 million people, right? 8 million people as a populace. But how much of the percentage voted for the mayor in the mayor election of 2021, which is the same percentage that voted for public advocate? So in the end, the very people that are complaining about that should look at themselves, because they voted for Jumaane Williams. Now you're stuck. Nobody ever thinks of the repercussions of who they're voting for. Oh, my vote doesn't count. That's a big thing I've always heard in New York City. I lived there many years. Oh, it doesn't matter who we vote for because it's all rigged. Yeah, I'm sure it's rigged.
Well, look, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, if folks aren't happy with who's there, take a look in the mirror. Where were you at the time? So, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, and I feel sorry because you're still trapped, and you're there in New York City. We're not trapped. You're one of the people that are trying to change things, but other people are just being naive or low information with this. Oh, God forbid if he got removed. If he was removed or resigned, it's actually beneficial for New York City. Keeping him there, I don't know how this is going to go because it looks like President Trump is Geppetto and he's Pinocchio and he's just pulling a string and go. So you're being run by the federal government, which I don't think is right because the city should be sovereign from the state, which is sovereign from the government. I think it's three entities run their own, the way they run their city, their state is how they want to run it. The feds come in, they help. There's money. If you commit federal crimes, multiple jurisdictions, they handle that kind of stuff. When it comes to stuff like this, I don't know how you can have a president. I mean, to me, people criticize Joe Biden. He pardoned all these people, his son and stuff, and it was egregious, the corruption he was doing. But you can't complain about that and say that this is okay because it's President Trump. Right? Am I wrong, Frank? Maybe I'm going crazy. I don't know.
Look, I think, principles only means something if you stick to them no matter what the personalities involved are doing, right? I don't think you could say, I have principles and it's wrong when that guy does it, but it's okay when this guy does it. No, I mean, I think that's the whole point of having principles.
Yeah, that's the reason I wanted you here because you're one that's always been grounded. And because you're grounded, they say that you call you a liberal because you don't agree with them, or a full-blown conservative if you disagree with something else.
And now, if President Trump chooses to endorse my opponent in my city council race after I made those comments, then I'm blaming you. You got to make up for those votes.
Oh, well, what can I say? I'm actually thinking now in the mayor's race, if you put your citizen's hat back on, how do you see that shaping up? Because, we have our dear friend that's running now. And I also know someone else, Jim Walden, he's a former prosecutor, he's an independent, and he's very critical of this entire situation just occurred, and critical of city council and the way the government's run. So, what are your thoughts in the mayor's
Well, look,
race?
I'm obviously, as you alluded to, I'm gung-ho for Curtis. Curtis is my guy. He's been very supportive of my candidacy. I'm 100% in for Curtis. I think he'd be the best mayor that New York has seen since Rudy Giuliani. Now, how can a Republican get elected in a general election in New York City? I have no idea. I think it's very challenging. And the truth is no one knows because the conventional wisdom is that as a Republican, you're going to get somewhere between 20 and 30% of the vote. Probably true. But I would rather lose with Curtis than win with Eric Adams or one of these other losers running as a Republican. But I think that Curtis, look, nobody that gets elected mayor is ever supposed to win. Giuliani was not supposed to win in 93. It was this bizarre confluence of events that came together that allowed him to win, barely. Mike Bloomberg, even spending $100 million, was not supposed to win in 2001. It was only because of, a variety of factors, but in part what happened with September 11th that allowed him to win. Now, no political strategist, Republican or Democrat, could have ever planned for that. You can only put yourself in a position to benefit and make sure you're there if some sort of once-in-a-generation incident takes place. And that's what I think Curtis is going to have to do. Bill de Blasio was not supposed to get elected in 2013. It was Chris Quinn's race to lose. Then it was Anthony Weiner's race to lose. And again and again, 2021, the favorite was Andrew Yang. It was just assumed Andrew Yang was going to be the mayor of New York City. Didn't happen. So New York City's electorate has a way of throwing a curveball. Now it's Andrew Cuomo. Every day there's another article explaining that Andrew Cuomo is the favorite in the mayor's race. I don't doubt that he's a favorite, but that's a very dangerous place to be. You got a target on your back. Not only are the other candidates shooting arrows at you, but so is the press. And with Andrew Cuomo, that's the last guy that should want front runner scrutiny on him because he's got an awful record. He was a terrible governor. He's trying to run a campaign for mayor basically against every single thing that he did as governor. I don't think New Yorkers are that stupid. I mean, look, he's got a lot of name recognition. That's true. He certainly knows politics. That's true. But I would watch on pay-per-view those debates of Andrew Cuomo versus Curtis Sliwa in the general election. I don't see how Cuomo recovers from that because Curtis would make the case so plainly before New Yorkers on issue after issue, whether it's bail reform, whether it's COVID, whether it's closing Indian Point and causing sky-high energy costs, whether it's interference in the Moreland Commission, whether it's issue after issue after issue, or the fact that all of Cuomo's buddies subsequently got indicted themselves. I mean, there's nobody that I would rather have make the case against Andrew Cuomo than Curtis Sliwa. And I think he's going to have the opportunity to do just that. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you because, not because Curtis is also my friend, but I think Curtis is the best suited to go one-on-one with an Andrew Cuomo. And I think if you look at New York City as a landscape, you keep hearing the same voices of the past, the Eric Adams, the Bill de Blasio. They've been around forever. I think New York needs to evolve and move forward. Mm-hmm. Curtis Sliwa is a fresh face. Not that he's a fresh face and that New Yorkers don't know him, but he's never been a politician. He has no ties. He's not gonna hire a Tim Pearson to be his deputy mayor when we know that guy retired from the NYPD. He's a crony. What is he doing there? Phil Banks, an unindicted co-conspirator. Why the hell would you put him in a deputy mayor position? See, that's what happens. Andrew Cuomo, he was in the scandal. He had to resign. He messed up New York. He's the reason Eric Adams wasn't indicted in 2012 or 2013 with the race casino scandal. He cut a deal, Cuomo, which the only good deal he probably ever made in New York is that the race casino has to give 70% of their profit to New York State. That's actually a good deal he made. But who got indicted? Everyone else, Maserati, all those guys around Eric Adams. And if you read his testimony, Eric Adams should have been indicted himself. Oh, yeah. He always finds a way to skate. I give him credit for that. But Cuomo would be a voice from the past. And I think New York, in general, you need to move forward. People that bring new ideas, that have no ties to corruption or cronyism or nepotism. I think Curtis Sliwa does it best. Even though the red beret, people have a problem with wearing it in the suit. But I think Curtis would be an excellent pick. Not to say Jim Walden wouldn't be either. As I said, I think Jim and Curtis know each other, and Jim is the independent. And I know, Frank, you love hearing about independents. So
I do.
Jim Walden's candidacy should be something people look into also, and what's on his platform and what he wants, because it's similar, almost the same as Curtis Sliwa, but he was a prosecutor, and at the very least, he's very, very critical of what's going on with this administration. So before we end everything, I want to ask you, you're a big WWE guy.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite wrestler of all time, and who's your current favorite wrestler?
So all time, it's easy. It's the Nature Boy Ric Flair. To me, there's nobody like Ric Flair. Styling, profiling, kiss stealing, girl chasing, limousine riding, son of a gun who spent more on spilt liquor than the two of us will make in a year.
Right.
He's my absolute favorite. I mean, really, I know Lex Luger used the term, but Ric Flair really was the total package. There might be other wrestlers that were in better shape. There might be other wrestlers that were better in ring. There might be other wrestlers that cut a better promo. There is nobody that every single that had it all like Ric Flair. He was so proficient in so many different areas of being a pro wrestler that they broke the mold when they made him. He's the greatest. My only issue is that I haven't been able to get him on my radio show. That's my only complaint. I watch wrestling much less frequently now because I'm busy with raising a family, being on the radio, now running for city council. But I do try to watch it when I can. So most of the wrestlers that I relate to these days are mostly wrestlers that have some sort of connection to 30 years ago or 35 years ago when I used to really follow it closely. I have a lot of respect for your guy, Roman Reigns. I think he's a real talent. But the two people that are active now that I really like are one, Chris Jericho, because he was active. I have a lot of memories of him when I followed pro wrestling closely 25, 30 years ago. And the other one is Cody Rhodes. You know, I was a real huge fan of his father, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. I was a fan of his brother, the natural Dustin Rhodes. And I know Dustin is still kind of active, but I don't follow him that much. But Cody, to me, has been able to have the kind of in-ring ability that, quite frankly, as much as I loved his dad was a great performer, but he couldn't hold a candle to his son in terms of being an in-ring performer. So, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, I hate this ridiculous tattoo that he's got over here. It's really annoying looking, but, those are the two guys that are still active that I follow the most closely, Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho.
I got to give you Cody Rhodes. I like him a lot. He's grown on me. I didn't think he was a good fit for the title, but man, is he is when you talk about a guy who knows the business, that guy like lives and breathes the business, and he's great for the public, whether he's a heel or a babyface. I think he's perfect. He's the right kind of guy to have the baton. He could lead or he could pass it off. Whatever you want him to do, he could do, but he is a behind the scenes presence, which is key for wrestling. And of course, you know who my favorite all time is. Roman Reigns is very close. But it's Hulk Hogan. I mean, and I grew up, I thought it was Hulk. I want to be Hulk Hogan, you know? And when he was a heel, he was Hollywood Hogan. Oh my God, it was even better. It was like I was a teenager and I was living my dream, saying, oh, NWO for life. Yeah. So I'll give you.
Carmine and I play with the NWO Hulk Hogan action figure all the time. There he is.
There it is. You see, folks, it's Hulk. The Hulkster. He's left an impression on everyone for many years. So
absolutely,
I gotta say he's my favorite. One last thing, where's your favorite pizzeria?
On Staten Island or just in general?
In general, but I know Staten Island's probably going to be where it's at.
Look,
can't be Roll Crown. Can't say Roll Crown. Roll Crown's on a pizzeria.
Okay, so Staten Island, we're blessed to have so many great pizzerias. I love Ciro's. I love the Tri-Pie at Ciro's. I love I love Danino's. I love just about any kind of pizza pie at Danino's. But I'll tell you, the clam pie at Lee's Tavern is out of this world. I mean, I've never tasted anything like the clam pie at Lee's Tavern. A lot of great pizzerias around the rest of the city, and I was very sorry to see we lost Patsy Grimaldi at 93 years old, who's responsible for two of the best pizzerias around. Yep. Not only his namesake Grimaldi's, but Juliana in Brooklyn. So, I was sorry to see that, but if I'm picking one, I'm picking the clam pie at Lee's. I love a lot of them, but I'm picking the clam pie at Lee's.
You're not allowed for the Chicago stuffed pizza, though. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about you with the Chicago stuffed pizza.
That's one of the things Roger says that is not entirely true. It's not entirely false, but it's not entirely true.
All right, well, Frank, I want to put your website up, so tell everyone when they could find you, where they could send money for your campaign.
Thank you. MoranoforCouncil.com. That's MORANO for council.com. And if any New Yorker gives any amount of money up to $175, it's matchable 8-1. So if you give me $10, that becomes $90. You give me $100, becomes $900. You give me $175, that becomes $1,575. So I appreciate whatever folks can do. And even if you don't want to donate, I'd love it if you check out my issues and my platform and let me know what you think of them. Let's have a dialogue about it.
Well, Frank, I'm there for you. You know, I endorse you full-heartedly. You're my friend. When I was going through a rough time, you were there for me. I do miss smoking those cigars with you, but you had me on right in front of your front porch. I mean, you talk me off a ledge sometimes. And by the way, they're my own investigation, just so everyone knows, because Frank is here. When they investigated me and they were running people's names illegally, my phone records, which they got illegally by saying I was a drug dealer when I wasn't, there is right there, it says Frank Morano, and underneath, no criminal record.
Woo!
So they ran Frank Morano's name. This is the individual they ran for no reason and
There
said
you go.
no criminal record. I still have that on file, just so you know.
Hopefully, after this interview, I can still say the same thing. Hopefully, they don't say that to me. Sal, thank you, my brother. Congratulations on the show. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. It's been an honor. You guys have just watched the Sal Greco Show. Thanks for tuning in. I'll definitely see you in a couple of days. I'll be discussing more stuff. But until then, everybody have a good rest of your President's Day. And Frank, God bless. Say hello to the family for me. And
Thank you, brother.
I hope this race goes well with no shenanigans being pulled by anyone around you.
Fingers crossed. Thank you, Sal.
Thanks.